The agenda is set. Hello, everyone, and a very Merry Christmas to you. I'm Brent Goff in Berlin. Today, in the spirit of the season, we pause and examine what brings us together as people and what pulls us apart. A holiday agenda for you. It's time to talk. Just in time for Christmas, the Pope has published a book on the baby Jesus, and it turns out several of the defining traditions of Christmas may be results of human error, mistakes at the manger, and why they may or may not be important. Well, the place where Jesus was born, the Holy Land, is a painful symbol today of the failure of religions to peacefully coexist. War, hatred, division, a fact of life where Christianity, Judaism, and Islam stake historical, political, and emotional claims. Today, straight talk about why religion many times tears us apart. And trying to improve humanity by turning the tables on how we view Africa. A video spoof on Live Aid has gone viral on the internet. Now it's Norway that needs Africa's help. A challenge to stereotypes that will make you think and may make you laugh. All right, I've invited three people today to talk, argue, and pry apart these holiday headlines. My first guest is co-creator of that video, Radiate, the viral video that is a huge success. Everyone's talking about it. Eric Schreiner Evans, you're the Norwegian who has turned Norway into a third world country. I have to say congratulations on the success of this video. It's tremendously popular. What do you think that popularity tells us about the hunger in the world for a true picture of Africa and a true picture for the rest of the world, for that matter?
Well, to be honest, I think people are perhaps a bit fed up with being served the same narrative over and over now for decades. The world is a lot more complicated and nuanced than the media gives the impression of it being.
Yeah, the media, including folks like me, carry a lot of that blame. We're going to talk about that in just a moment. My second guest says that one of the biggest barriers to peace and mutual understanding in the Holy Land is that eternal marriage of politics and religion. I'm happy to welcome to the show today Samuel Cheatham. I should say, Samuel, first of all, you are a bridge builder, right? You organize trips for young Muslims from Germany. They go to Israel to get a better understanding of Israel. When you look at that and when you see how these young people react with that, do you think it's fair to say that the three great religions in the Holy Land, have they failed us in their efforts to bring peace and understanding?
I would certainly say, once we deal with religion as an institution, I would certainly say yes. I rather deal with religion as a faith, as a bridge that should bring people together.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the bridge in just a moment. And my next guest says that the inaccuracies of the Christmas story, while they are important for historians, well, they mean little for the message of Jesus. I'm happy to welcome to the show Claudia Hüffig. She is a Catholic theologian with the Archdiocese here in Berlin. Claudia, thanks for coming on the show today. Merry Christmas to you as well.
Merry Christmas to you too.
The Pope writing that Jesus' birthday is in fact not this week. It's not on the 25th. He reveals conflicting accounts of the birth of Jesus in the New Testament. Nobody's upset about that. And why do you think that is? Where's the shock?
I think he is certainly coming to terms with what scholars have long said to kind of figure out what really happened. But I think nobody's shocked because the date from the 25th of December is a date that is certainly, we don't have a birth certificate of Jesus, yes? Yeah. So it's a date that has another origin that certainly is not in the origin of the baby that was born.
Yeah, exactly. You brought the Pope's new book there, and we want to pick up on that. It is predicted to be a bestseller. Pope Benedict's latest book Jesus of Nazareth, the Infancy Narratives. Now, it's now on sale, 1 million copies in the first printing. The Pope is lending his voice to what historians have long said: Jesus was not born on December 24th. But the pontiff adds there is no reason for concern because the New Testament was not written as a complete account of history, rather as a record of what the evangelists considered most important at the time for the young religion known as Christianity.
An estimated 1/3 of the world's population are Christians. Every year on December 25th, Christians around the globe celebrate one of their most important holidays, Christmas. The Christmas holiday commemorates the birth of Jesus, whom Christians worship as the Son of God. The exact date of Christmas has long been debated by historians. But now Pope Benedict XVI, the leader of no less than half the world's Christians, has also questioned the date. In his new book, the Pope doesn't just cast doubt on when, but also where Jesus was born. Does the Pope's new book bring Christians any closer to finding out the truth about Jesus?
The book is expected to be a bestseller. I was reading a couple of reviews. Some people are saying that the reason it's going to be a bestseller is because it reveals these inaccuracies in the New Testament. Claudia, what do you, as a theologian, what do you say to that?
I think that the Pope, when he writes about that, puts it very much in the service of what the feast of the birth of Christ, the incarnation, what that really means. I think besides the point that we are very much interested nowadays to have empiric facts, to know exactly when something happens, we sometimes forget that what's important about the incarnation, about Christmas, is really the message that comes with that, saying that Jesus is the Son of God. And with the birth of the Son of God, the Son of Man, a new dimension in life, a new dimension in our way to see the world has started. So it is basically a proclamation of the Savior, yes, that is born.
Yeah, I mean, the Pope, I mean, you've got the Pope's
Yes.
new book here, the German edition of it. He's writing as the Pope, but he's also writing as a historian.
Yes.
And he admits that sometimes there are conflicts there. But I'm wondering, I asked you earlier about, where's the outcry, where's the shock? Because there are times when the Pope points to the Bible and says, because it's written exactly this way in the Bible, it is law. That's the way it should be. And here, he's saying, well, you don't have to take everything so exactly, so literally. It sounds like the Pope wants us to have our cake and eat it too.
I think you have to distinguish two things. On one hand, the Bible, or when we quote something of the Bible, it is not to say it is law in the way when the Pope proclaims a dogma. So when he is in the Pope, as Pope, saying something that is the law of the Church. On the other hand, when we are reading the Bible, as biblical scholars have done for many, many years, yes, you will find that what's written in the Bible is not something that is researched like a journalist researches something. It is a scripture that has a history, yes. And of course, if we get to the date, as I said before, there is no birth certificate. So we have no empiric proof of the date, but we have a whole gospel. We have 4 gospels, and talking about the infancy narratives, there are 2 gospels, Matthew and Luke, who talk about the infancy of Jesus.
And they actually, these are conflicting stories, right?
Exactly.
I mean, that is bothersome. I think of all these nativity scenes that we see in the Christian world right now. There's the manger, and there are the animals, and then all of a sudden the 3 wise men come.
Exactly.
Well, that's not how it happens in the New Testament.
It's very interesting if you take out Luke and Matthew.
Yeah.
And you would divide the Christmas story by Luke and Matthew, you would get very different stories. For instance, if we would forget about Matthew, yes, we would only have Jesus in this grotto, yes, outside of Bethlehem. We would have Mary, Joseph, and the baby in this place where the birth took place. We would have shepherds in the field, and after some time, the family would go back to Nazareth, and that's it.
Right. And obviously this wasn't taking place in one night because, shepherds were traveling with their camels,
Right.
we assume, so people weren't moving around quickly anywhere.
Yeah. No, the shepherds would be with their sheep and with their flock, yes, and the wise men are in Matthew. They're not part of Luke.
Yeah.
So if we would only have the Christmas story in Matthew, yes, we would only hear from one sentence in the scripture, he was born in Bethlehem. And then the wise men would come. They had to flee to Egypt, yes.
Yeah, exactly.
No manger in Matthew,
Yeah.
yes. So
there are several narratives going
Exactly,
on right here.
exactly.
I'm wondering, though, is the Pope not opening up a big can of worms here? What about creationists? People who take the story in Genesis, who believe that the world was created in 6 days. Now, the Pope is giving the green light to an interpretation of the Scripture. So what about people who are creationists who say, no, we are strict literalists, the world was created in 6 days? He's basically saying they're wrong, or they could be wrong.
actually, I have to say that it is in Catholic scholars and in the Catholic Church, I would say that to read the Bible literal makes it very narrow. I think there is a whole lot of other resource and truth and meaning if you try to go away from just thinking what's written literally in the text. He makes in this book a big case out of the Christmas story to talk about what it means and to see that if you take the different characters in the Christmas story, if you take their connection to what was written from the prophets, from the Old Testament, he opens up like a Christmas, an Advent calendar, little doors, yes.
But there's no chocolate inside.
And there is no chocolate inside, but there is a lot of very peaceful and very good meaning.
See, Claudia, I think you're being too generous with the Pope. I think
Okay.
because I think the Pope, I think he's thinking very much like a historian and
Yes.
as an intellectual. But I think that presents problems to all types of doctrines that are pulled from the Bible. I mean, he is giving us license to interpret.
Yes.
And for many, many schools of thought in Christianity, that is not acceptable. And we see that in debates now in society, whether it be abortion, whether it be gay marriage.
Yes.
But what he's doing with this book is he's saying it is okay to interpret.
I think that if it comes to the Bible, I think he is saying in this book that different scholars have different meanings. And if it comes to the date or the place where Jesus was born, he opens up the discussion and says different scholars came to different results.
Because that's human nature. Samuel,
Yes.
and isn't that what all religions need, is the room to breathe and the room to allow for human mistakes and interpretations?
Well, the Pope has done something quite unique in that perspective, that he's done something that has always have been done, an interpretation. And an interpretation means, in a certain way, breaking the dogmatic way of thinking. And a break in that interpretation, it just opened the discussion to something new. Now, religion have always functioned in different ways, as a faith, but as a social behavior. And once religion fail as a social behavior, we have people just like don't accept that codex of the religion. So Catholicism, in a certain way, in our modern society, have failed as a social behavior because it just like don't encourage equality between man and woman,
Right.
and doesn't encourage just like open discussion about the dogmatic way you believe inside the religion.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what I think a lot of people are going to say, that the Pope is opening the Catholic Church up to that type of criticism. Eric, I mean, what do you say? Because obviously we're talking to you today about perceptions of the world. The Bible is also open to perceptions and interpretations, right?
Sure, and I guess this proves that having just one single perception, a one-dimensional perception is of anything can be quite troublesome at times. You have to always be open for other alternatives and see bigger pictures.
Yeah, I wonder what this book is going to mean for. Again, I'm thinking of certain denominations, certain branches. That, especially the creationists, I mean, this has got to be very explosive for them. And I'm still wondering why we haven't heard the boom of that explosion yet. Is it because people don't pay attention to what the Pope says outside of Catholicism? I mean, is he actually losing his importance? I mean, there's all kinds of issues here.
I think I'm not so sure how important for the creationists the Pope is, because I would guess that not a lot of Catholics are creationists, yes? I think that the discussion about creationists has a lot to do, if I would say that faith and reason come to a good cohabitation.
And
yes?
is it? Yeah, and that's what the Pope claims he's doing, right?
Yes.
Faith and reason, the Enlightenment and the Church are allowed to exist in the same town.
Yeah, and I think it's a good thing, because and he makes it quite clear in this book, and I know in other publications of him as well. If we take faith serious, and I'm a person, I believe that I'm Catholic, so I have my belief that I believe in God, in Jesus Christ. But I'm as well a person who has reason. So,
that's the thing. We have to move on, but I want to bring this up before we move on. The Pope also says in his book, he reaffirms that Jesus was a product of a virgin pregnancy. And so there he's asking us to turn our reason off, to turn the laws of biology off and believe a story that otherwise could be inaccurate. So again, it just feels like we're being asked to pick and choose and have our cake and eat it too. We'll come back to it, though. And I'm just food for thought there. Let's move on, though. We're going to stick on the topic of religion, the conflict between Israel and Hamas in Gaza, as an example, the civil war in Syria, and the persistent protests in Cairo's Tahrir Square. When you look at the Middle East today, you have to ask yourself, why can't they get along? Well, many commentators say that the main trigger of unrest is the intersection of three major religions, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. So today we ponder how these pillars of the religious universe have failed in one of the most important goals, shedding light on the path to peace.
The world seldom sees peaceful images coming out of Israel and the Palestinian territories. Occupation, separation, repression, and war dominate more often than not. Many in the region have lost hope in a political solution. But what about religion? Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, collectively known as the Abrahamic religions, all have a stake in the Holy Land. All three are monotheistic traditions that share the common belief in the oneness of God. They also all define themselves as peaceful religions. In a region so steeped in religion, why then can't the Holy Land find peace?
Samuel, you say one of our first mistakes is even referring to it as the Holy Land.
It is not holy. In a certain way, holiness is being defined by the religion as a kind of a body. I'd rather not give places or structure, or what do you call it, a place as a holiness. So I doubt this word holy land. I don't think that there is a land
what
that
you're
is
saying
holy.
there, of course, is very, very explosive as well, because if everyone shared that opinion, people wouldn't be willing to die over the ruins of a temple.
Yes, it is in a certain way. It's the theologists who actually create for themselves a land, and I don't think that that religion need a holy place. So, in a certain way, I don't believe that God is as something, or the Son of God is. We could actually say each one who was born in the birth should be in His image. As it's also in the holy books written.
And talk to me a little bit about what I said at the beginning of the show, this intertwining of politics and religion in the Middle East. It's true, when every time I've been to the Middle East, if it's Egypt, if it's Israel, when you talk religion, you're also talking politics and vice versa. Is there any way to divorce the two in the Holy Land? Is it possible to do that?
I think we need a new form of I would say, dealing with the Middle East. Mostly people deal with the Middle East from the perspective, if you're being European, bringing the state, bringing democracy to the Middle East. That was the issue after the Second World War, during the whole time of history, bringing democracy to the Middle East. But the state, the concept of a state as in a Western society, is being the superior. Now, in the Middle East, the superior is God. And you need different systems to deal with that. And that's what we're facing right now in the Middle East, is the failure of the idea of bringing democracy to the Middle East.
How can you say that? We're just coming out of the Arab Spring. We're seeing a birth of democracy in the Middle East.
We're seeing people who are not pleased with the situation that they had before. Now, if it's going to develop to democracy, I would say it is not known. But it's certainly going to be something new that combine Islam into a state. And I don't see that as a kind of something wrong or bad. I think it's just like a normal stage that the Middle East is going on right now.
So you're saying we're not looking at liberal democracies in the Middle East in the near future. We're looking at democracies that have the taste of theocracies.
Who is willing and want to integrate Islamic law in the state.
But again, we've still got religion and politics married there, and
yes.
That's very frustrating for people like you. You're trying to, with your program with these young people, build interfaith understanding. How can that happen when governments, when nation states are still leaning on religion?
I try to break that perspective in the behavior in that simple meeting somebody who's from a different religion. And the institution structure is for me, for somebody who's an activist, quite far away to change. Because the structure is already being there and it's always going to be influenced. But I think that peace is not a political act. Peace is an educational act.
Which is what you're doing. I want to pick up just something on your personal story, just briefly. You grew up in Israel, but you're not Jewish.
No, I'm not.
Was it easy to grow up in the Jewish state as a non-Jew?
No, it's difficult. It's difficult for minorities in Israel, especially for a minority that hasn't establish its own position inside the majority. So you're having a kind of a lost or undefined identity, and it's always been an obstacle. But I've realized that the advantage actually later on that you could actually read Hebrew, Arabic, and I've learned Aramaic, so I just could combine everything.
You could speak to Jesus.
And I could, well, yes, I do.
Yeah.
And Jesus loves me too. But it is mainly that I think that religion is a figure and maybe a door to reach people, but it's very dangerous once you walk in those definitions of religion. So for me, it's just like open the door, but not sticking with it.
I'll ask all three of you. These three main religions that have so much at stake in the Holy Land, do they all need a good dose of the Enlightenment and a good dose of secularism, modernity? Do we need to bring these religions into the 21st century? And Claudia, I'll point my finger at you. Does the Catholic Church need to get on the bus headed for the present?
I think that they have come a long way. They are on a path in that respect. I do see that. I think that if you compare the Catholic Church today with what it was maybe during the First Vatican Council, yes, a lot of things have happened. But I do agree with you that the door must be opened, and I'm sure that religion can help open this door. But I think that in the end, for a political engagement, for transforming what a religion says humanly together in a peaceful manner, I think that enlightenment should be a good way to do this.
Yeah, right. And also
I think that we should not underestimate what the Enlightenment did to history in Europe.
And to the Catholic Church.
And to the Catholic Church, yes.
As well. Eric, you come from a place, Scandinavia, Norway, that is known for being very secular. Are you better off than someone coming from Egypt or Israel?
I would be very careful with saying that that's because of secularism. I think there's religion can be so many things, and I very much agree that peace is very much about education, and if people, regardless of religion, actually are educated and see the broad perspective on their own situation and of course of their neighbors, then I think that will ultimately lead to peace. And education is liberating. It's the tool that people use to.
Well, education always, it always blows up dogmas, right? It shows them for what they are. But religions are based on dogmas, right? So, you see, if we take this to the next logical step, what we're doing is, when we say we want a society of the Enlightenment, yes, we want to have the ability to ask why, what the Pope is saying in this book. But aren't we pre-programming societies to become secular and less religious by having the ability to think?
Well, religion functions on the system of good and bad. And I think the Catholic Church and Judaism and Islam quite function the same way. And I think that's the problem. Education is far away from good and evil, and we know that is the Enlightenment is the necessity of reaching knowledge not only through religious perspective. The problem is, in my opinion, that is too much interpretation into those religions. Just like too much of this explanation of good and evil, and I think most of our political systems, as religious systems, function at the same way, and that's the obstacle.
I mean, it sounds like what you're saying is the biggest obstacle is that these three religions, at their core, they claim to have the patent on the truth about God. And how can, I mean, I remember as a kid asking the pastor, how do we know that what we think and say is the truth? And I mean, these are very philosophical issues, but at the end of the day, if we're going to live in peace, we have to be willing to say we may not have the truth, the whole truth. But do you see that willingness in the Middle East?
Well, the willingness is that people want to live together. The nature of a human being is not defined as the church defined it, as being bad and have to go to that good. And so I think the nature of people is competitive, and it can be also manipulated in certain ways, and the religion do that.
And I want to pick up on this idea of manipulation and how we see things, black, white, good, bad. And we're trying to lighten up the discussion a little bit now. We've got a stocking stuffer for you this Christmas that has everyone online talking and rethinking the world. It's a video that rearranges the world of haves and have-nots. Africans to the rescue, Norwegians trapped in the cold. Take a look.
It's time for us to get this heat's enough for no way. If Africans would say, yes, Africans keep thinking we can't contribute. The warmth you've got we'd like to share, but we can distribute.
A lot of people aren't aware what's going on there right now. It's kind of just as bad as poverty, if you ask me.
Well, Eric, you don't look like you're freezing to death.
No, because I'm in Germany.
Ah, I see. You got out of the third world country of Norway.
Exactly.
How in the world did you come up with this idea of turning the tables?
Well, for quite some time we've been very frustrated with the way countries in the global south, especially sub-Saharan Africa, are being portrayed in the media and by certain fundraising initiatives. You keep seeing the same narrative of this whole continent that is really being portrayed more as a big country solely filled with poverty, starvation, war, and Africa is so much more than that. That's just like if you would portray Norway as only being about cold weather, that'd be very untrue. I mean, sure, I've had frostbite, but that doesn't.
Really?
Yeah, but that doesn't define my life. Just as poverty doesn't define the majority of lives in Africa.
I remember at university a professor talking about cognitive crutches that we all carry with us and when we try to understand the world. And aren't people just being people? Don't they like to put continents and people into categories and keep them there? Isn't that human nature? And what you're doing is asking people to maybe stretch themselves a little bit. But that's hard for a lot of people to do.
But I think people want to do that. I think people want to learn and to have more information. Basically, what we're doing is we're holding you accountable. We want the media to actually give people the information that they actually do deserve. And I think this, the fact that this video has caught on as much as it has is actually proof of that. People, there is a frustration. People are they realize that this same narrative that they've been shown so many times is incomplete.
Do you think it's so popular? I mean, do you know how many? We're talking several million hits anyway. I'm trying to think about the success of this video. Is the success there because people want a different truth about the world, or is it because you gave them something to laugh at? I mean, you're showing them the absurdities of the way we see the world, and you're saying it's okay to laugh at it.
Well, I think it's both. People want to laugh, and people also need to laugh. And you know, when we keep seeing these horrible images, I mean, there's really nothing to laugh about, but there is a lot to laugh about. Also, you know, we should be more creative in the way we communicate. You know, all these fundraisers are way too negative, in my opinion. You know,
I think a couple of points there. I mean, someone like Bono would say you're wrong, that these fundraisers, I mean, they raise awareness. I mean, let's think back to 1985 when Live Aid. Before Live Aid, a lot of people in the West would have said they knew nothing about Africa. Mm-hmm. And then after Live Aid, they said, well, we know there's a lot of famine and drought there. So they do serve a purpose in providing some information.
Sure, and they should continue to do so. But we need more information. I mean, Live Aid was a long time ago now. It's time to move on. We should hold the information that we receive to higher standards, and also repeating this same image can be quite dangerous, because you know, when you divide the world into, you know, an us and a them, you sort of create, you sort of reinforce that distance that is actually part of the problem.
Yeah.
And also,
well, that picks up on the religion thing again, right? You know, the chosen ones and the others.
Yeah, and I think what's perhaps the most dangerous here is that initiatives like Band-Aid tell people that, you know, there is a huge problem here, and you have to fix it. And the way to do that is by donating money to this account number. And while that is good, people should still donate. That is actually just a symptom of a greater problem. And by only showing these, you know, the same images, you know, you're not telling people what the problem is actually about, what the root causes are.
But you're talking about, I mean, we've talked about that on Agenda before, this clicktivism instead of real activism. It's easy to go online and say, oh yeah, Africa should be a better place, and you know, click onto that and you feel better, but you're not really doing anything to change. I want to pick up on something else. I think it's interesting that this video, which challenges us to rethink our world, comes from Norway, a very secular place, and doesn't come from the Middle East, a very religious place. Is that random? I mean, this notion of being able to challenge accepted realities and perceptions and bending our intellect. You're coming from a place that provides room for secularism. I mean, you're smiling here.
Yeah, I do. I
You
don't
think there's any connection there?
No, I don't think there is a connection. I rather think that ideas come from people who've been inspired by some experience that they went up through in their life. And the fact that somebody comes from Norway coming up to this idea is not because he stayed in Norway. I think that obviously a lot of your colleagues went up to Africa and seen and come in with connection with people and communicating with others and pumping up in something new.
Well, with the video, it was produced in Durban, right? I mean, a lot of the actors
filmed in
there.
Durban, yeah.
Right.
As I say, there is no hole in places, and there is no ideas to be written and to be put into certain places. That's what humanity is all about, is that no boundaries, ideas have no boundaries. They are not located in one place, another place. They don't exist.
Mm-hmm. We're about to run out of time, but would the world be better off if we had more people challenging us to think and if we had less religion? Claudia, I'm not trying to make you unemployed. You know, I mean, it's the spirit of Christmas. I don't want you to be unemployed, right?
Absolutely.
But
No.
would we all be better off if we had less religion?
I think, no. I can't really say yes. No. The thing is, I really liked about the video that it is challenging our stereotypes. And I think equally if there are religious stereotypes or there are secular or human stereotypes, it has nothing to do with religion or not. I think that stereotypes in any dialogue, in anything that will bring us further, are not helpful. They could be religious, they could be about this land, Africa, yes, in Aspens, yes. I think stereotypes avoid communication. And I think this is absolutely important that we should look out for that.
Okay.
Yeah, you kind of pose the question as if religion and critical thinking can't coexist, and you know I would strongly disagree with that. And I mean, yes, it's really dangerous to have these predefined truths that people are are obliged to accept. But you know, this book is in many ways also proof that you know.
Yep.
Even the greatest church doesn't necessarily do that.
Yep, we're going to have to let you have the last word there. We're running out of time. Yeah, maybe the biggest message to take away from this Christmas edition of Agenda is that you don't have to suspend your reason to have a little bit of faith as well. So that's going to round out the agenda for this hour. Don't forget you can watch the show again online. You know the address. And don't be shy. Tell us what you think about the show. Our inbox is always open at agenda.english@dw.de. I'm Brent Goff in Berlin. The week of Christmas, it has been. Thanks for stopping by. Join me next time when I set the agenda for 2013. See you next week.